quick, not really a tutorial, just a test of what I've been doing and discovering so far. First off, let me turn my inverter off so it stops beeping at me. What I've discovered so far is, you'll see my test video, first test video I did, it was in 2K, 30 frames a second, or 24 frames a second, I don't remember which, with spot meter on. The spot meter does really good when you're in the case to get rid of that flush, that washed out look. I'll show you what I mean. Of course, sometimes it won't work for you either, depending on the footage you're trying to get. But long story short, I did get stabilization to work pretty decent when I sped up the video at 2K. When I played the video at normal speed with stabilization, because of the fisheye, there was just way too much distortion to put up with. But at sped up, you wouldn't really notice the distortion from the fisheye. Stabilization and fisheye do not play well together. So with that being said, however, I did see a lot of drop in the resolution when, of course, using the stabilization with iMovie. If you watch that video, you'll find out I tried Prodrillin, I've tried Virtual Dub, I've tried everything. In essence of getting things done quick, and the results I saw, iMovie did better or as good as the others without taking forever to get the job done. However, when I went to test the video at 4K, 15 frames a second, everything changed. Anything I did before didn't work. It seemed like, yes, it would stabilize, but it was still by far way jerky. Really, it didn't look much better with stabilization on than with off, and except you had the warping effect of the fisheye getting screwed up with the stabilization. So I did find a program that led me to trying something again with Final Cut. It was called Lock and Load. Now, in theory, it looked like it was pretty good, but I really couldn't tell because in Final Cut, and I couldn't really preview my video once I turned Lock and Load on to see how it did. So I thought I'd go ahead and render the video, share it to a file, published, and then watch the video and see how Lock and Load did. I couldn't even do that. Too many issues with saying bad frame here, there, whatever. I went and Googled a lot of threads, and people said start over and do this and that, whatever, and I just decided screw it. This software's crap. Based on everything I read, it pretty well sounds like it's crap. The other issue I had was it was slow. Now, this is something you will find with Final Cut. Just do it. I don't know why they even enable such a feature, which again shows me how much crap it really is. It's the setting here. I have to close this menu so you can see it. See, I just got it open here with just this 4K footage, and it's like really stupid slow. Just so you know, my machine's a 2.2 gigahertz i7 with a quad core, of course, with 16 gig of RAM. So it's not necessarily a small machine either. Maybe not the best for video editing, but it's not like I'm dealing with 4 gig right here. So anyway, on Final Cut, and this is all I'm going to show you with Final Cut because in this project it turned out to be worthless to me. And so I'm kind of steering away from Final Cut overall. I'll try it in some other projects and see how it goes. But go to Final Cut Preferences, and why isn't it opening? There it is. Background rendering. Make sure that is off. Dumbest thing they ever did. By default it is on, and it starts after you open the program. After you open your video, it'll start within 5 seconds, and your machine is unusable. If you got a 4K video, forget it. You're not even going to use it. I don't know why they did that. They should have made it like start 5 seconds of your machine being idle or something like that. So if you're not actually using your machine, then it would kick in. But no, it's going to try to do this background rendering while you're actually trying to use your computer to work on the video, and it makes it totally worthless. Stupidest thing I ever seen in my life. Turn that off. That's my pointer for Final Cut. Enough with that, because it didn't do anything I needed to do for this video. It turned out to be totally wasted time and crap. So, but for anybody screwing with Final Cut, there you go. Make sure that's off. Just my word of advice. See, I got this video open, and even then, it's so ridiculously slow. So let's get rid of this piece of crap. Alright, so I went ahead and, like I say, I did find lock and load. I thought, well, I'd try lock and load in Final Cut. Couldn't tell if it worked or not, but then I saw that lock and load also works with Premiere. So I got my hands on Premiere Cloud, and it kicks butt. That's all I can say. This software is faster than any other stuff when it actually comes to using and editing that I've used so far. Now, yes, it does take a while to stabilize the video. Lock and load technically is faster. However, every time you make a slight tweak in lock and load, it had to redo the entire tracking for what your clip was. So in the long run, it really wasn't faster. The other issue is I still saw with lock and load is that it didn't really smooth out my video very well. Now I'm going to show you some tricks I did here, some things I did wrong with this video, but here we have it. First thing, I didn't really do any serious editing on this video, and this is the same technique I used in all of them to see if I could get the best stabilization I could. All I did for my editing is I split the video about every minute. So you're going to see where the video jerks when it changes from one perspective, from one type of one degree of stabilization to the next, depending on the cut that it had to work on. But like I say, I'm not really worried about the final up. This is just for testing. So I cut the video in 1 minute increments. Now, an interesting thing, when you are using the stabilization on Premiere, if you have a video, you want to get all your cuts and everything done beforehand. So that it will actually, if you do it that way, in other words, don't try to stabilize your video first and then cut it. If you stabilize your video first and then do all your cuts, it's going to try to use the same rules that applied to get the whole video done as it would have even after you cut. So in other words, you won't be able to get better stabilization if you cut after. You want to do all your cuts before you try to stabilize. The other thing is, when you have all this as one video, it's going to go and analyze the data sequentially throughout the video to stabilize it. So basically it's using one thread of your processor. If you cut all these, okay, in your different spots where you want to cut, don't just do it every minute like I did, actually look at your video and do it right. Then you select it all. Then you go over here to warp. Like I say, this is not necessarily a tutorial because I'm still learning all this, but this is just to hopefully save you time in your testing and trying to perfect your stuff. When you drag the warp stabilizer, you drag it over to everything that's selected. I'm not going to do it because it's already done. And it'll start stabilizing each of these. Now, because these are already cut, each one has to have its own data analyzed. It's going to be able to analyze this much faster now because it's no longer going to just use one thread to analyze the whole video. It's going to spawn basically a thread for each one of these. Now keep in mind, while it's analyzing on this part, if you do it that way, your computer is going to be pretty tied up. But it will get all this analyzed much quicker than if you had this all as one clip and then you try to analyze it from beginning to end, because I'm literally going to spawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 16 threads. Okay, so my CPU is going to be maxed. But it will get it done quicker than just having one thread working all the way through this one video. So just keep that in mind. I did see a huge performance boost by doing it that way, but also you're going to get better options as far as what you can do with your stabilization if you split your video. But like I say, I split it every minute. Split your video in places that make sense. The other thing I did wrong in this is I took this video, I selected it all, then I right-clicked, and then I nested the video. I did that, and so I've already nested it. Here it is. It's nested into this. So it shows on this as one video, and then I could go in here, right-click, and then I change my speed and duration, because you can't change your speed and duration on a video that's been tracked for stabilization. But you can once you do it this way, because the video that's been tracked is technically here, and we are controlling this is tracked, and now what we're changing the speed on is this nested container of that video. However, that I think was the wrong way to do it, because when I finally exported the video, it still looked like it was actually about 7 frames a second. However, I'm not going to re-export it again for this test because I'm tired of screwing with this video. But I think the actual correct way to do this would have been not to have split all my video, then nested it, and then sped up this. I think what I should have done was come over here to the actual clips, right-clicked on the clip, gone to modify and interpret footage. And what I should have done here is told Premiere that it's not really 15 frames a second, but it's 29 point whatever, or just put 30 frames a second. Assume frame rate is 30 frames a second. That, in essence, would double the speed of the video, and it would think it's a 30 frame a second video, not a 15 frame a second video. And then I would not speed it up here. There'd been no reason to speed it up here. There would just be this one track. This would be much shorter because there'd be 30 frames in each of these based on that setting I've done over here. Now again, the reason I say that is when I finally got the video outputted, it looked like it was 7 frames a second, even though I outputted it to 30 frames a second and sped up 15 frames a second times 2. It didn't look like it. You'll see what I mean. But overall, like I say, what I ended up getting that actually still provided stabilization on a 4K video was Premiere. Nothing else worked. It didn't work. Don't waste your time. Now, I do have, this is probably a harder video to stabilize than most because it's a head strap and I'm riding a bicycle, so I'm constantly pedaling and moving my body, hitting vibration in the road. The bike's moving, the road's moving, the background's moving, my head's moving. It's not like we're skiing down a hill either, where, you know, you're fairly fluid. There's a lot going on. So I think this is like the worst possible video to try to stabilize for the most part. So there is a trick, though, to make the stabilization work really well with the fisheye. When you go into your track and you've got the stabilization finally on, you're going to see the settings here. And of course, I've set everything as much as it could go. I set the smoothness at 100%. And I did that. I was able to do that on all my tracks. Then the next thing I did was I said position. Oh, by the way, you want to use smooth motion. You don't want to use fixed. Fixed is like if you were on a tripod pod. You want it completely like a stationary look. I'm riding a bicycle. That's impossible. So you want smooth motion. But I will tell you, with fisheye, don't even waste your time with perspective and subwarp. It's going to make it look like garbage. Position, scale, and rotation doesn't necessarily help either, but it doesn't look as bad as the other two. What I found works best, and this is pretty well for sure, is just position. So when you first do this and you set that position, your video is going to show up, and I said stabilize and crop. I want as little motion as possible with the video, because of the fisheye causing as much distortion as it does. You don't want to add anything new to it. You don't want to use any of the auto zooming and stuff like that with the stabilization, because, like I say, the fisheye is the problem. So when you first turn this on, you're going to pick stabilize and crop, and so it's going to look at the video and say, oh, well, we've got to crop this much out in order to stabilize it. And that's fine. Like I say, if you can adjust that, I've got this to the highest setting it can go. And hold on while it gets done canceling out autosave mode here. I'll go over the other things here. So then, right down here I say crop less or smooth more. I go ahead and set that to smooth as much as it can go. I slide that slider all the way over. And then I use my additional scale to zoom it in to where the black is just gone. Now if the black, if I go to 200% and there's still black showing, then I take this crop less and smooth more and I bring it down a little bit. Usually just drop it down a quarter. So in other words, if you're 100%, then drop it down to 75 and see, and that's usually close enough. If it's still, you can't get rid of the black borders by adjusting the zoom out to 200%, drop it to 50. You know, that's the best way to get rid of this, is do this crop less to get rid of it and zoom in as much as you can. That's what I found works. Again, the stabilize and crop, don't use the zooming, because this way the only motion you really have is the distortion the fisheye is going to create, plus the motion of the bike and such. But if you use any of the zooming, any of those other features, it's just going to be too much motion. You're going to see too much distortion. It just isn't going to work. Now, with that being said, you're going to see as you watch this video, the places where I cropped it most, you see very little of the distortion. Again, let me explain what we're seeing. It's not jello effect, people. I'm sure there is jello effect that you probably do see created sometimes when you do stabilization on a CMOS camera. But I've read a lot of threads and people saying, oh, it's because it's a CMOS and it's jello effect and all that. No. I have a really cheap old crap camera. Paid $600 for. I paid $300 for it. It was a closeout at Best Buy, and I can stabilize and it works just fine. The issue is the fisheye. If you're bouncing around, all these edges are distorted as it is. You have a curve here, for example. Say this was the corner of the fisheye lens. So this is curved. Now as you bounce up or your head looks up or whatever, it moves into a straighter pan, or your head turns. Now this curve is straight. And your stabilization is trying to move all these images so they overlap and fit on each other to where the center all matches correctly. But you've got some things that are now curved and some things that are now straight, depending on what angle they hit the fisheye. This is not jello. This is fisheye. Fisheye and stabilization, again, I will repeat, do not play well. It doesn't matter what you do. The only way you're going to fix it is get rid of the fisheye. There's no other way. So if you know, we can play with some settings. I'll try my next one is to, use the narrowest view. I went ahead and did 4K. If you look at my first video after when I did 2K and I did stabilization, you could really see the pixelization. However, what I did see on the final results with 4K, it seemed to do just fine. Not really any pixelization. Everything was good. So, here we go. So, again, crop less, smooth more. In this particular case, here's the video. And it's still frickin' thinking. There we go. So, and like I say, this is faster than any of the results I got on the other editing software on my machine. So, once you get these settings, just crop it out and be good with it. Now, again, like I say, don't speed up your video here if it's 15 frames a second. Tell Premiere that your source was 30 frames a second and use that, because when you get done, if you do it the way I did it, it looks like it only processed like at 7 frames a second. So that's the little tip for that. You'll also notice, like, when you get to this particular frame, which is right here, you'll notice, depending on the frame, depending on the motion, like this one right here, when you see this frame, it's right when I come around the corner. And let me stop that. And so it's right when I come around the corner. You'll notice it's very little in the frame. And you'll see very little distortion because of it. So like I say, when you're hiking and stuff like that, you may want to try the narrowest, because if you're going to use a head strap and you're going to try to stabilize it, you may want to try the narrowest field of view. Again, I haven't tested that kind of footage yet. The issue that I see is, of course, it's a much lower resolution, so by the time you stabilize, it may look really bad. However, this, once I stabilized it, it's still very narrow. You could crop your picture. It seems like I got pretty good resolution there. You'll see in the final video. It's definitely much better than the first two. So that's where I'm at with this test. And now I'll just play the video that I did and you see how I did it. And so that's a starting point of if you want to play with your 4K videos. Again, if you guys have any suggestions, any results that you've seen on what you've done with your experience, feel free to post your comments to share with others. Maybe we can figure out how to make the easiest way to make these videos work without having to have a degree in video editing. So there we go. And you guys have a nice day, and I hope that this was somewhat helpful. And so I will begin the playback of test 2 now. Just realized I forgot one step here also. When you're sharing the video, when you're exporting the video in Premiere, I did discover one issue too, and this will help save you some time. So we'd go here to pull up the right menu. So say we're here and we say export media. When I did this, I tried several of the different settings, and I readily admit I don't know what I'm doing here wrong. But long story short, I ended up getting QuickTime, and then for the codec, I actually picked MPEG 4. I tried using the H.264. I guess it's the wrong codec. I'm not sure. It did not. It looked bad. So I picked the MPEG 4 video, and then of course I set the resolution to 1080, and increased that to 100%. Use maximum, and that worked really well when I used the MPEG 4 codec with the QuickTime. Again, I'm not sure why, but it really looked terrible when I used H.264, which I thought was going to be the correct codec, but apparently it's not. So just keep that in mind, and that will help give you a decent video when you're exporting this thing. So now I'm going to play the video I got, and keep in mind you're going to see big jumps where, in those 1 minute increments when it jumps and, is a different level of stabilization for that particular clip. I didn't worry about any kind of crossfade or anything. It's just a test, and so I'm going to start that now. Thank you.